Hey, everybody. Welcome to the after party for our brain trust of customer support, customer executives. We get together and we talk about challenges. And one of the challenges that seems to be a trend right now is BPOs versus contractors versus employee-based operations. I've got some great executives that have hung out after the event to give us some best practices on how they have experienced this and maybe some things that you should consider as you're looking at these three different models. I've got Alan Rich here with us, founder of Y Meadows, who's going to kind of frame up this topic a little bit more, and we'll go from there. So over to you, Alan.
I think the classic way of looking at the problem is usually around cost savings, but it turns out for those of us who have been in this business, there's a lot more involved in it in terms of, the sense of ownership and culture, and also maybe flexibility in terms of uncertain economic times. So those are some of the factors that I think everybody's struggling to deal with, and so having people in our industry directly address it would be really interesting. So Ben, I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, I think you touched on one of the key points, and I think one of the main benefits of kind of a contractor or BPO type of an engagement is it is a little easier in terms of flexibility and scalability. And I think, one of the other main benefits to an approach like that is typically most of those BPO type providers have a really kind of structured environment for recruiting and talent pipeline and training and onboarding that you may be able to leverage depending on the state of your current organization. I think one of the kind of Achilles heels or the things that maybe don't get considered quite as much is, a lot of these companies and organizations are really good at what they do, but they're only really ever going to be as good as kind of the ecosystem that they come into or kind of the box and the parameters that you've provided them as an organization, right? So it takes a lot of time and energy to build out your specific kind of training, content, case routing procedures. Typically, when I see BPO engagements go wrong, it's kind of a lack of planning and preparation ahead of bringing this part of the organization online. So the more time and energy that you spend early on there really pays dividends in the long end, and it can be really successful and beneficial in the right circumstance and with the right amount of training.
Excellent overview, Ben. I appreciate that. Now, one of the things that you did mention, if I could unpack a few things that you said, can you give us a little bit about what are some of those things that you prep for? Are you developing? What kind of templates do you use? What kind of plans do you put in place? What are those things that you're thinking about?
Yeah, it's a good question, Paul. I think at the highest level, it's really important to think about what are the universe of cases that these folks are going to be handling, right? Typically, the way it starts is you start with a smaller sort of subset of cases or maybe something a little more repetitive or potentially with less variability is usually how I think about it, right? Usually to start, you want to make it fairly straightforward, things that are pretty procedural, that there's, a process or a workflow that someone can follow. Without a lot of need for decision making or sort of judgment call type scenarios, at least early on. They're typically not going to be very well equipped for those types of things. So I think first of all, just kind of thinking about what that universe of cases are, more broadly, like what level of experience are you hoping that they can deliver, right? Are you looking for, a sort of efficient, fast transaction? And the way that you would develop maybe a training and a case handling process for that would be a little different if you're maybe in a more relationship-based business and some of those soft skills are a little bit more important. And then more broadly, like how is your existing team going to interact with this part of the team, right? So any handoff or escalation type procedures, what do you want this team to do if they run into a question or a situation that they're not equipped to handle? And then, more broadly, like how do you measure success, right? Most of these companies will work with you on building out those metrics and KPIs and all that, but what does a successful engagement look like for you? When do you think about growing? Diversifying the types of agents, maybe paying a little bit more for some higher quality agents. All those factors should be based on things that you know before you start the engagement.
Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Ben, for that. Does anyone else have any thoughts on working with BPOs, contractors, or making those types of decisions?
I would just build on what Ben said. A lot of that's around thinking through the engagement and treating the partner as a member of your team. And a consideration that I found successful is that when you celebrate success, to include them, if they're part of that success, to celebrate that success with them and acknowledge it. And that goes a long way above and beyond the day-to-day acknowledgement of the contribution. But really, I've seen help take the relationship to the next level.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, if you're going to commit all the way, right? Like you don't want to keep someone at arm's length, bring them into the fold because they're part of your strategic growth plan or your strategic. So you want to treat them as such. Excellent stuff. Alan, do you have any other thoughts as we've kind of discussed this a little bit?
Nope. I know it's a area that like one of those topics that never goes away. It's just always of interest, always challenging, and different economic times where it's been really hard to sometimes hire local talent. This has become even more of a pressing issue.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank all of our contributors here today, Craig and Ben. And for those of you out there, I hope you're able to get a lot of great insight from both of those folks, as well as Alan. And I hope that we'll see you at the next Brain Trust for customer support and customer success executives. Thanks everyone for joining us today.